So I think it's maybe getting time for a new theme song. So I just decided to try out one of these AI generator things just to see if it was any good. So my prompt was news intro, drums, and trumpets. Because, that's pretty much every news show starts with like, bum, 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 there you go. I should just do it with my mouth. Why am I getting AI when I have the natural instrument of my body? It was horrible. Like every song was absolutely atrocious. I had to do about 8 or 10, and not one of them sounded even close to what I would call music. So musicians, you're safe for the next little while at least. I mean, I bet AI could at this point generate the script for this show, although almost impossible because I don't script it. But you know what I mean? If you fed all the Ninja News Japans from the past into AI, it could generate, if you take I must be able to take the news, take my style of speaking and put it together, clone my voice. The podcast is automated now. I don't actually have to do anything. But the theme song, you're safe. I'm still thinking about what to do. I want to pay people to do it, but I don't have money. Like, I'm not rich. This is an update on a story from previous week. So we had our 2 gentlemen who decided to graffiti Yasukuni Shrine. We've talked about why Yasukuni Shrine is a controversial place for people from primarily China and Korea. We've talked about graffiti. Is it bad? Overall, basically, yes. This guy, he sprayed, what did he spray? It was dog poop. So I actually could go back into my old notes. I should have checked. He sprayed what I would consider like grade 2 level thoughts onto the shrine. He was a little more honest about it. The first guy was like, this is a political statement. The second guy's like, I don't like this. I actually kind of appreciate the honesty there. He escaped back to China. And so in my report last time, I was like, he's not going to get arrested. Nothing's going to happen to him. The Chinese police do not care if you've committed a crime in Japan. You can read into that a bunch of different ways, but at the end of the day, it is a fundamental truth. But he did get arrested. So I said he wasn't going to get arrested, but then he did get arrested. But the reason he got arrested is for a different crime, of course. So there is sort of a karmic version of justice happening here. He committed a crime and he is being punished. He has committed 2 crimes. He's being punished for one. Does that count for both? I think the criminal justice system in China is pretty harsh. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. The graffiti in Japan, honestly, graffiti, how bad is it? I don't think you should graffiti, vandalize things, whatever. But at the end of the day, how many people are actually getting hurt? You got to clean it up. I would basically make the criminal clean up the thing they graffitied. That's a pretty fair punishment. He was arrested on suspicion of extortion. He was threatening people involved in online streams for shopping. So China is very popular to have shopping streams where you bring products out, you talk about them, you move it on, people can buy that product. And he apparently was trying to intimidate these people into getting them to put money into a bank account. So just essentially just extorting them for money. While I, of course, would judge someone for graffitiing something, I can understand the politics behind graffitiing Yasukuni Shrine. I really can. I wouldn't do it, but I can understand it. But when you get into extortion, it's pretty clear you're just a bad person anyways. And so there is not a lot of a redemption arc here. And I'm sure the Chinese justice system is absolutely going to bury you. So good luck to him. A Japan postman. Now, I say postman because it's a guy. So I'm not trying to be sexist biased or use my sort of older misogynistic style of speaking. It's an actual postman. But also could be a postboy, because this postman was a teenager. And I was like, wow, I never thought about the age of post people. It's kind of a neat sentence. But because I never thought about it, because in my image, they're just adults. But I don't want to insult people, mail carriers. But skill-wise, you need to be able to deliver mail to certain addresses. That is about it. I'm sure there's more to it. I feel like I've already insulted someone. I'm sorry. I think it's a valuable job. I think it's important. Japan Post is dedicated. I once did an online thing. It was probably for t-shirts or something. And because the website, I put my name in Japanese and Chinese characters, so in kanji. On the form, it showed up as question marks. So the Chinese script wasn't on the server side of the system they were using, the payment system. I guess they were set up for only English. Perfectly makes sense. They still sent it out because I assumed the whole system was just automated. 2 months later, this package shows up. All it has is my name in English and the postal address, and they still got it to me. So that level of dedication made me really appreciate Japan Post as a group of very dedicated people. But now we get this story, and it's a teen who is hired. So already it's like, maybe that's the problem. But also, I don't think it's like teens are inherently lazy or not capable or anything. I don't look at young people that way. I look at individuals. So this individual, the fact that he's a teen, I think, is what got it to the front of the news, because it's sort of playing into people's presuppositions about youth. A teen Japanese post person dumped 2,378 letters and 449 parcels in 7 different locations. So over the course of mid-June to July, so that'd be about 6 weeks, just was like, I can't deliver all this mail. So I'm just going to take it here. I'm going to dump it. I'm going to take it over here and dump it. I'm going to take it over here. The 449 parcels, though. Okay. You're a mail person. You're supposed to deliver the mail. You decide you're not going to deliver the mail. You start dumping the mail. You have the parcels. If you're going to commit, this is a crime. I'm pretty sure this is a crime. Just dumping the mail. You have the parcels. You might as well steal the parcels. I know I regularly say I should not give advice to criminals, but then immediately start giving advice to criminals. But it's because I'm like the police officer who gets into the criminal mindset. I just want to be in their thought. But in my head, I'm like, well, if you're going to throw it away, you might as well profit from it. There may be some good stuff in the parcels. Keep them. You might as well even take the mail home and open it. Maybe someone's sending someone some money or something. I've now realized that if I became a post person, if I decided to just start dumping stuff, like I didn't want to deliver the mail, I didn't want to do my job, I would be like, well, let's take it home and I'll go through it and see if there's anything valuable that I could keep. Less likely to get caught. So the fact that he was dumping it in 7 locations outside, so the report came in on July 31st. Someone found mail and parcels in between a house and a river. So I didn't write it down. They found it. They basically found one of the places the kid was dumping the mail. They called the post office and the police. The post office talked to the guy. He admitted to doing it. He just said, I can't deliver all this mail. You guys are crazy with all the mail you expect me to deliver. It's too much. Clearly should not have been a mail person. So what they've done, they didn't arrest the kid. I'm finding this the interesting part. He's not been arrested. The post office is filing for damages. And that means he's going to have to pay the equivalency of whatever all that stuff was worth. So they have to work that out. They found pretty much all the mail could still be delivered. There were 3 parcels that were so damaged, probably because of rain or something, that they couldn't read the address. So there's 3 parcels will not get delivered. They've put the message out there. If you are missing a parcel, you can contact the post office. Maybe they have it for you. But at the end of the day, yeah, it actually seems like after 2,000 pieces of mail go missing, someone should have noticed a little sooner. Japan, we've done a lot of things about Japan. Battening down the hatches. There's some good sailor talk that I've learned from my father. They get stricter. Japan does not get looser in its laws and rules. It gets stricter. So what has happened? Like electric scooters became available. They immediately started making rules about electric scooters. About a month ago, we did a story about those little motorized suitcases you can sit on and go through it's supposed to be through the airport, but some people were riding them in the streets. If you ride them in the streets, they fall under motorized vehicle rules, and you have to have all these modifications to make it legal to go on the streets. Cycling, very common in Japan. It's a very convenient way to get around because the trains are great, but trains don't go everywhere. So if you take a train somewhere, it's often more convenient to take a bicycle to your final destination, not the movie franchise. Why? That didn't even make sense. Just as soon as I said Final Destination, the movie comes into my head. I haven't even watched those movies. I know they're all about like people dying and they know they're going to die. I don't care about that. I don't know. I like horror movies. I like movies. I never cared about the Final Destination series. Maybe that should be my, maybe I've been overly judgmental about something I haven't seen. So I gotta make some amends and maybe actually go watch one of those. There's like 6. That's a bad sign. Anyways, cycling is very common. So they have decided to get a little stricter with the rules for riding your bicycle. And it's going to be people riding their bicycle drunk and people riding their bicycle while looking at their phone. So if you are cycling while using your phone, you can now get fines, and jail time. If you are a repeat offender, you have to go to bicycle safety school. I quite like that. I bet it's not very good. I have the gold driver's license. Japan has a tier system. So if you have no accidents, the real reason is I don't drive very much. So I have never had accidents. I've never had a ticket. So I have gold. My wife got 1 ticket. She has blue. It actually really bugs her that I have gold and she has blue. When I renew my license, I have to go in. I think I have to just go in, change it, maybe watch a 10-minute video. But if you have blue, you got to watch the long video. That's literally punishment. I love it so much because, as I just said, someone I know has to do it and I don't. If you are a repeat offender, you have to take a safety course. And I bet that course is miserable. If you are found using your phone on your bicycle, it can be up to 6 months in prison and a 10,000 yen fine. If you are found to be a threat to pedestrians, so if you're just riding looking at your phone, that's a crime. If you're riding looking at your phone and you almost hit people, it can be 1 year in prison and 300,000 yen. So that's a significant jump up. So if you're endangering other people, that's a big deal. If you're drinking and bicycling, in my mind, it used to be you're not allowed to drive drunk. So riding your bicycle drunk was therefore acceptable. Now the only way acceptable to travel while drunk would be walking. It's probably a good idea. Even that might be dangerous. But if you're drunk and you're riding your bicycle, it can be punished by up to 3 years in prison and 500,000 yen fine. So they have decided that not only are you going to be careful on your bike, you're going to be sober and careful on your bike. There are 4 options. Okay, so the story itself is there was a reporter, lady reporter, for business sort of daily thing. She was arrested for breaking stalker laws. She texted a reporter at another paper 64 times between August 17th and the 25th, which I was like, 64 sounds like a lot, but that's only 8 texts a day.
That's dedication, though.
I don't know, 8 texts? I think if you and I had a chat, it would be 50. I guess it was just 64 initiating messages where the guy didn't really respond. Anyway,
Yeah, like if it's conversation, 64 is meh. But then if it's 64
just you.
messages in a row,
Yeah, that's a bit much.
that's crazy.
Okay, but those 64 messages came after she had been warned by the police not to attempt to contact the man again. So now you can see that 64 is way too many.
It is. Well, one is already way too many.
So the
right?
police show up and they're like, hey, don't text this guy at all anymore. And she's like, okay, well, just 64 more times. The way she sent messages. So this actually implies to me, because the information was not in the paper, in the news story, was not over line or a traditional text messaging thing, which would imply maybe that he's blocked her on that. She would send a message via PayPay, the payment system. She would send him like 1 or 2 yen. And then the message she connected to it was, I want to see you, or something like that. So she sent 64 messages through PayPay, a payment system. So for the American listeners or whatever, it would be like Google Pay, sending a couple of pennies. And then you can send why you sent those pennies. It was like, I want to see you. So she was actually paying extra for each of those messages.
So she's a level 3 stalker.
She's pretty serious about it. So her reason, so your job is now to guess her reason for continuing to send messages after she had been blocked. So I have 4 options. 1, I want to see you, but she meant professionally, not personally. B, it's a payment app and therefore they are not messages. C, he didn't block me. So like he didn't block me on PayPay, so it must have been okay on PayPay. Or D, it was for a story on stalking.
Oh, man. So I haven't heard this story yet.
Good. Because if you hear the story, it kind of ruins the quiz.
There is
This has been my
definitely.
biggest concern. It hasn't happened yet, but my concern is I start the quiz, get to the quiz part, and they're like, "Oh, but I've heard this story and know the answer," and they haven't like cut me off. In which case, I would have to abandon the whole thing anyway. But okay, you can ask questions about the four options, and again, the three that are not true, I will try to make up real sounding answers.
Okay, okay.
Do you
So
remember the options?
she's basically got a restraining order against this guy.
It was one step lower. So the police warned her that if you continue, you're going to be breaking stalking laws. He hadn't officially gotten a restraining order. So there is maybe a little legal wiggle room, but I think the message was very clear. You need to stop.
Yeah.
The police had
So
warned her. That's, yeah,
she,
that's,
she's she's clearly gone through PayPay to keep sending messages. I don't think. I don't know. I don't know. Like, what kind of mental gymnastics would this level 3 stalker girl be doing? It's either C or D, I think.
okay. So C was he didn't block me, therefore it must have been fine. So he didn't block me on PayPay specifically. Or it was for a story I was doing on stalking and just wanted to get into the mind of a stalker.
Oh no, B is also pretty good mental gymnastics wise though, right?
Yeah, it's a payment app. So I wasn't sending messages, I was sending payments, and you have to connect a message, like a thing, to the payment, like a receipt almost. So the receipt was
Yeah.
I want to see you. Do you have any? You can ask a couple
B.
questions. It's hard to ask questions on this one because it's just guessing, I guess.
So the person she was sending the PayPay messages, or not messages to, is he also a stockist?
Is he also what?
Is he also in the same kind of um, profession?
Oh, he's a
He's also.
reporter. They are both reporters. They work at different publications. So
I
I'm
see.
going to assume that they met professionally somehow, like at the same, they were at the same story or at the same location or a conference or something. Professionally, they overlapped. Personally, they did not.
Then I think I'll go with D.
D, it was for a story I was doing on stalking, is incorrect.
Ah,
When she was arrested, the statement she made was, "It's true that I sent him messages, but I thought I'd been accepted because he didn't block me. I'm not concerned by the accusations." Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not convinced by the accusations. So she's saying the police told me to stop. He hadn't blocked me on PayPay. So therefore, I'm not convinced he's told the police. So the police are just interfering in her personal relationship. They aren't, it has nothing to do with the guy. She thinks that the police are jealous of her relationship or something.
jealous.
Well, they must, but I mean, what other logic? So like the police have come and told you stop messaging this guy. And she's like, well, but wait a minute. He hasn't blocked me on PayPal and I can send him messages. And then he gets those messages and he hasn't said anything. Therefore, I'm not convinced that he told you to tell me to stop.
I see. It was the other line of mental gymnastics.
It's a lot. I mean, she's gone through, yeah, 3 or 4 different justifications to get to the
That's
point where it's like still acceptable for me to send messages to this dude.
on PayPay, no less.
The bit that it's the fact that it's on PayPay, a payment app, really solidifies to me that this she was not either he didn't give her his contact information or he had blocked her elsewhere, but because she saw this one opening that
That made it okay.
did you ever see the German guy who was in love with like a K-pop band? It's
The
really
German guy that was in love with a K-pop band.
so there's this guy and he was it was a video online. It's probably like pre-pandemics. We're talking like 5-6 years ago. He's doing his justification. He's basically been given a restraining order, and he says, "This restraining order wasn't given to me by the woman I'm stalking. It was given to me by the management company. So it's the management company trying to stop me, not her."
Be sure that Nayeon likes me and that she wants me to come back to Korea, and here's why. So, first of all, at the start of this year, I received a restraining order. But this restraining order was not from Nayeon, it came from JYP Entertainment. It did not come from Nayeon. And JYP Entertainment tried to destroy my image and tried to intentionally scare Nayeon away from me because they feared that Nayeon might neglect her job if me and Nayeon start a relationship. But obviously that would not be the case, because I would obviously support Nayeon's job as an idol and stay with her in Korea so that she can still focus all her time for her career. Secondly, I always have treated Nayeon with a lot of respect, and I truly, truly love Nayeon with all my heart. And I'm working really hard all the time trying to make Nayeon happy and trying to make her realize that I truly love her. So why would she hate me? That would not make any sense. I know one time I accidentally leaked Jaeyoung's phone number, and I admit it was a mistake, and I apologized for that already. And I know that there are a lot of fake news about me on the internet, created from unprofessional news outlets who try to gain views with clickbait titles and fake rumors to make money out of it. But Nayeon is smart enough to know that there are a lot of fake news about me on the internet. Nayeon knows that I am a good person, and Nayeon knows that I am in love with her for almost 4 years now.
So like he's convinced in his head that the girl does love him back or would accept him, but it's the management company that's interfering.
Yeah, they just want to stop us getting together. The management company's scared that I'm going to take her away.
That does seem like it. And so this seems like on the same kind of thinking. It's like the police are trying to stop us from getting together. There's always the question, like why? So in the other one, the management company would be losing an asset. So like she falls in love with this guy and they disappear and she's not going to do music anymore. But in this case, the police, why would they bother to interfere with a personal relationship? They do not care. If you ever get a message on PayPay from me and you don't block me, I hope you realize what you've actually done is just open that door.
I mean, yeah, PayPay is also a messaging app. So there you go.
I actually did an interview with another podcast this morning called Requiem Radio. So that should actually be out this afternoon or tomorrow. So if you're listening to this, you want to hear another 2 hours of this noise coming out of my face, you can listen to that as well. You get another 2 hours of just me and another guy we're talking about. We talked about movies and comics and anime, and we talked about Japan, and we talked about judo and stuff. So some new interesting insights into me. If you don't get enough of listening to my voice every single week, multiple podcasts and YouTube channels, and Jesus, I bet it's a lot. Anyways, feel free to check out Requiem Radio. You get another 2 hours of Chunk Beef Chest. Don't know why that popped into my head. I think I had a link that is now gone because I was talking. There's City Hall, and they were keeping Excel sheets. Japan loves Excel sheets. They use Excel sheets inappropriately. Like they use Excel sheets that should be Word documents. I don't know why, but just Japanese companies, something about it, something about Excel really is attractive to them as the catch-all document. Maybe it's the cells. I don't know. I find it frustrating, not because it's wrong or bad, but I'm like, this actually would be more comprehensible as a Word document than it is an Excel sheet. And then the Excel sheets I often get at work are gigantic, like incomprehensibly large. So how am I supposed to actually get any information out of this? They don't seem to understand that Excel sheets are used to contain information and then make that information more digestible. That's that last step, the step that makes Excel sheets, in my mind, useful, is the one they don't seem to have adopted yet. Completely irrelevant. Like most Japanese offices, this City Hall was keeping an Excel sheet on staff performance. Between 2020 and 2022, it was called Progress Report, and it was delivered to the department head every week or two so that they could check the progress of employees. This was about a specific employee. There were multiple categories, like words and actions. So I guess if they said inappropriate or appropriate things. Insufficient abilities, quite direct, but stuff you're not good at. Remarks were then put into the Excel sheet, making fun of one of the employees' appearance. So one of the statements was, the back of his head looks like a bird's nest. Another statement was, his underwear can be seen from under his polo shirt's hem. It's disgusting. Took me a moment, because was that At first I was like, is that you're tucking your shirt into your underwear and the underwear hikes up out of your pants? And I was like, no, because it's from under the hem. So it sounds like the polo shirt is too short and you can see his underwear. Anyways, someone felt that that was inappropriate. And instead of speaking to the man, put it into an Excel sheet that would go as a report to the department head. The thing is, this was on a public network within the city hall, which means eventually, of course, the man, in this case the victim, found it, found the comments, and then saw it as power harassment. He reported the harassment. The conclusion of the investigation was the document itself was a measure necessary for smooth and proper performance and therefore not harassment. So what they're saying is this document's intent. So keeping track of things people do well, keeping track of things people do not do well, so that we can give them feedback. That is appropriate. They do continue though. However, it contained sentiments unrelated to duties. So his hair looking bad, his underwear sticking out of his pants, that does not impact his actual ability to do his job. Like whether I like it or not is irrelevant. And therefore that did constitute harassment. They did a meeting with the department head. The department head, at first, he said, it's just facts. We only put facts in there. But the back of his head looks like a bird's nest. That's an opinion. It may or may not. I don't know. I would have to see a picture. And then you have to show me a picture of a bird's nest and put them together to actually see if that is factual. But his underwear sticking up also, I guess that is technically a fact, but I think he was trying to cover it up. But then they said, let's dig into it. This is harassment. When it became out that this was harassment, kind of changed his tune a little bit to claiming he did not know about the tab with the comments. So he's claiming that he was given this Excel sheet every single week or so, that it had comments added to it every single week or so. He claims that this thing he was sent every week with new added comments every single week. He didn't know that there was this one tab, just the one tab. I looked at all the other tabs, didn't look at this one tab that had the harassment in it, so I didn't know. So I think maybe he's being a little dishonest. I think maybe this guy actually has a case that this is a form of harassment. Now, the department head would have been very justified in sitting down and have a conversation with him about his appearance. You just have to be very sensitive about it. And you have to realize, does this matter? So in a lot of jobs, how you look will not negatively impact your performance. This is what work from home has actually taught us. Like if you're working on a computer, let's just say software programming, if you're in your pajamas, it does not negatively impact your performance. In some cases, being comfortable might even increase your performance, but it's irrelevant. So I think this might be a case where could they have dealt with this more deftly? Probably. They could have had a really sincere conversation, maybe constructive criticism of how we could help you in the future. Maybe we can make some recommendations. Maybe when your underwear's hiked up, we could actually suddenly take you to the side and be like, hey, you might want to pull your shirt down or your pants up or something. It's about 11 p.m. on August 23rd. And a guy works for Yomiuri. He's a cameraman. And he's out at this time. He's working, so he's riding on his bike, and he goes to a place where he needs to take some pictures. And there's some guys skateboarding there. And he's like, fuck these guys. So he starts a fight with 3 skateboarders. And I'm going to assume the skateboarders are younger. Skateboarders do tend to be younger. But one of the things I know as a former skateboarder myself, when I was in my teens, skateboarders band together and they have big pieces of wood with metal tied, stuck to them. So it's never a good idea to mess with a skateboarder because the other skateboarders are going to join in to defend their friend, and they have big pieces of wood with metal screwed into it that they can then hit you with. The cameraman then kicked one of the skateboarders. Now the skateboarders, good boys to be honest, they did not retaliate. They just chased him down. They did not attack him. He tried to escape. He ended up getting caught. No one else got hurt any further. The police show up and they're like, hey, you're not allowed to kick skateboarders. I know some people might consider them a lower class of citizen, but you're still not allowed to kick skateboarders. He said, it's not fair that I'm working while they're playing, while others are playing. So he's saying that because I have to work at 11:30, no one else should be allowed to have a good time at 11:30 at night. If I'm working, everyone else should be working. No one should be having any fun. That is unreasonable. And not a reason to go around kicking people. And I actually think he might be lucky he got off as light as he did, because, God, but you got to think what's going through his head. like how frustrated he is. One of the things we talk about is work-life balance. And again, yeah, this guy working at 11:30 at night when he doesn't clearly want to be working is what's setting him off, attacking other human beings. Yeah, you got to set limits. He can't work all the time. But then I guess that's, again, the Japanese work-life style. Okay, we're getting into the darker stuff. I've decided, okay, I did a C. McBee episode, and it was about murder in Japan. And on YouTube, it got like 20 times more views than any other video I posted. I usually get like double-digit views on the podcast because this is an audio format, and that's where most of the audience is. YouTube has never really taken off because I think anyone who listens to this, they're listening on podcasts. But to try to make it worth listening to, I'll add like comments and stuff. I used to not do any murder on this because I try to be so flippant. I realized I'm not actually that flippant. I just talk and then give my opinion and maybe make a joke. So I did this episode of C. McBee on murder, and it got like triple digits, 450 or 60 was the last number I saw, which is a huge increase from, let's say, 25. So I was like, well, there's no reason to shy away from murder if that's what people want to hear about. So in Ninja News Japan going forward, basically no topics off the table. I just think if it's got murder, I probably will just make less jokes. It will just be more facts stated, maybe an opinion here or there. But if that's what people enjoy, I mean, I was hesitant because I wanted to make jokes, but I'm like, just don't make jokes. It actually is very obvious. Here I am 300 and whatever episodes later, just figuring out I can decide not to make jokes. I can decide not to be flippant. It's a revelation for me. I always feel like you have to make jokes. You have to be flippant. There's a ferry that connects Japan and South Korea. It's about 200 kilometers. It's a passenger ferry. So you get on in Japan and you take this nice boat ride. It's probably about a few hours. And then you get off in South Korea. You go on holiday. Koreans do the same thing. They come to Japan. And I actually think it'd probably be on good weather. Very nice way to travel. A staff member was returning to her room and she found her door open. Now she thought, I closed my door. And then she found her underwear drawer open. She's like, that's weird. Clearly, if she thinks she's closed her door, she's the kind of person who closes things. Not like my son, who now has gone into this weird habit of just leaving drawers open, which I've asked him to close the drawers. And he looked at me and he goes, no one's going to die. My immediate response was, of course, you will if I see this open again. That's parenting. So this is a berth on a boat. So the bed has a curtain around it so you can block out light and stuff. She pulls back the curtain and she finds a 30-year-old man, first engineer on the boat, attempting to hide in the room. First of all, I'm going to be really honest, terrible hiding spot. There's not going to be a lot of places to hide in a room on a boat. They're going to be small and very tightly packed. But closing the curtain to the only really usable piece of furniture in the room, I assume, is not a good hiding place. You get under the bed, get behind the bed, get above the curtain, maybe even, I don't know, something like that. Then maybe you'd have a chance. They're still not successful. They're going to catch you. But imagine just pulling back the curtain. There's just like this 30-year-old man there going, kind of just stole your undies. The captain gave him a talking to and he admitted to doing it. He quit the next day. So they were like saying, let's not involve the police. Please, no charges. They actually talked to the girl and they said, like, please don't press charges. He's going to quit. He's off the boat. He's gone. She was a little torn because he's like, we're worried about, the reputation of the boat. We're worried about the sort of duties, operations of what's going on. This is going to negatively impact us. If it impacts us, it'll impact your job. So they were trying to pressure her into not pressing charges to try to keep it quiet. I think that's really it. I had a whole other idea though. If they press charges, is this international law? Is it maritime law? Is it the South Korean jurisdiction or the Japanese jurisdiction? Because I believe it's a Japanese boat in South Korean waters. So is it the Japanese boat means they should report to the Japanese police because it's a Japanese citizen who would get arrested. It was a South Korean staff member who had her underwear stolen. So should they report to the South Korean authorities that a South Korean person had a crime committed on them? Should they call Interpol and solve it that way? Just have Interpol, international police, come in and just deal with it. Should they do maritime law? Now, I didn't look up maritime law for theft. I actually do enjoy maritime law because often it's very, very logical. So maritime law does have a lot to do with intent. So there's flotsam and jetsam, and then this. So basically, your boat is sinking. You throw stuff off. If you threw it off, it becomes salvage. If you threw it off with the intent to come back for it, it's not salvage. So salvage, if you come across it, you can find it and just take it. If it's not salvage, you have to give it back. That's maritime law. So intent became the most important factor when it came to flotsam and jetsam. There's also the stuff that sinks. I forget. There's two names for that too. Again, for the same. Some has been abandoned and there's no expectation that it'll come back. And then some, they intend to come back and get it. That actually makes a huge difference as to whether or not you're allowed to keep it, because some is salvage, some is not salvage. In this case, though, the Japanese guy clearly intended to steal. So that makes him a pirate. So he should be treated like a pirate. Now, he didn't do any of the swashbuckling cool stuff to escape, because he should have been able to escape. So I think he should be treated like a pirate. And how do you balance it out to make it fair? Yeah, walk the plank. That's the only answer. I did the song too soon. I didn't know what keel hauling was. Keel hauling is when they would drop you over the front of the boat and then drag you under the entirety of the boat. And then you got to think there's barnacles and stuff, the stuff they scrape off. Barnacles are sharp. They cut you. And then this was before engines. And then you would come up the backside of the boat. If you're still alive, that was your punishment. But most people died in that process. They could keel haul him. But see, there might not be barnacles because of modern technology, but there is a big freaking propeller engine at the back. So if he survives that, then God is on his side. But anyways, we got to move on to the last story. An 83-year-old woman living in a care facility in Fukuoka. She entered her room and she found a stranger, someone sleeping in her room, and she became furious. So she decided to do the only logical thing. She walked up and started just punching her, leading to the woman's death, because it was another older woman who was sleeping in her bed. Now, it turns out the 83-year-old woman had entered the wrong room. That is a very, very interesting set of circumstances for this death. So she's walked into a room. I'm going to give her that it's night and it's dark, because the other woman was already sleeping in her own room. If she had looked around, she might have noticed that this isn't my stuff. But at the same time, if it was dark, maybe she didn't, because it's a care facility. So every room is probably set up basically the same way. So it'd be a pretty easy mistake to make. But I think it's very clear. You see someone sleeping in a bed, beating them is not the answer. She should have gone and gotten security and then gotten them to check and get the person out of the room. And then she could turn around and be, because you make the same assumption. Maybe that person came into my room by accident and went to sleep, because these are all older people. They might get confused. They might have sort of early onset dementia or something like that. Who knows? But immediately going to fisticuffs on a sleeping person who is defenseless is an unreasonable reaction. So the beating led to this other woman's death. She was arrested. She is standing by the claim that she didn't do it. Okay, so that's my first foray into introducing murder as a story into the podcast. So I cut it off pretty quick. I don't want to talk about it too much until I get comfortable with where I want to go and how much I want to say. But you can see this is a slightly new direction for the podcast.